All right, so let's talk about modification. Modification is usually done by two levels. The first level is the adjustment of work that all the students are doing so that a student can access the work. So what we're talking about here is a student who's sitting in the classroom. They may not be able to, say, write, for example, a complete essay with a lot of without some assistance, or they might not be able to do the maths problems without some assistance. They're still doing the content, they're still looking at the curriculum that is being shown, and they're getting their assistance within some of their skills. The second level is the extensive adjustment, and these are for students who are completing an intensive and individualised program. So these are for our students who are at our schools who have their own program. They cannot complete the work of their peers, and it's usually because of a severe intellectual disability or other type of cognitive disability. We need to be really aware that they do need this individualised program and that they shouldn't just be there to do the work of the other students because they're actually not learning, they're not gaining anything from it. So they're the two levels that we're going to be talking about today. The adjustment of the work so that the student can participate within their class and with their peers, maybe at a different level than their peers, and then also the very extensive adjustment that needs to be done when students are unable to access any of the work that is being done in the classroom. So first of all, why do we adjust work? The reason we adjust work is that students may not understand the concept that we're talking about. And this might be for some students, it may only be one concept within the curriculum that we're doing, or it might only be for one subject. So especially in secondary school, a lot of students often talk themselves into not liking maths. So they then think they can't do maths. And so we do then look at the concepts that are being taught and we may adjust the work accordingly. It might be that they don't really understand, say, for example, in geography about one aspect of it, or in history, or if you're in primary school, it might be the reading that might be difficult and not necessarily the writing. So we need to think about what it is that we wish to adjust the work for. It may be that the students just need to have some repetition of the concept. Once they've seen the concept a number of times, they're able to understand it. So it just might be that slight adjustment right at the start of a new unit of work or a new skill. It might be they need adjustment within their environment. So it might be that we need to have sound-filled systems within the classroom, or it might be that we need to use certain colours on the whiteboard because students might be colourblind, or it might be that they need to sit at the front of the classroom for certain reasons. So we need to think about their environment. It might even be just that they need to sit next to certain people who will be able to be better influences on them in the classroom. And it might be instructional adjustment. So again, the instructional adjustment are things like, do we need to break the instructions down? Do we need to give them some more information so that they can actually understand what we're talking about? The other reason we adjust work is that they may have been diagnosed as having a disability that actually impedes their learning. And this is what I was talking about before with the extensive adjustment. These are for students who do have usually a cognitive disability and quite a significant cognitive disability. We're not talking about students who may be sitting at around that 70 mark for intellectual disability or cognitive disability. We're talking about students who are significantly below their peers, the ones who do struggle with the everyday work that the other students are doing. So let us look first at the first section, those students who are in our classrooms who just need those adjustments and are still doing their peers' work. So what can be done? First of all, we can have the unit content can be adjusted. So what we're looking at is the actual content within the subject being changed. And it might be that if you're looking at, say, for example, in Victoria, the VCAA guidelines, or in your own state, whichever the guidelines are, you might be bringing them down one level or maybe two levels. The content is being adjusted, but they're still doing relatively similar things to their peers. So for example, if they're doing multiplication, they might not be doing multiplication with 2 digits by 2 digits, they might be doing multiplication of 2 digit by 1 digit. Or if they're looking at some English things, what it might be, instead of writing a paragraph, they might be writing 2 or 3 sentences. So this is what we're doing. So that is being done as well. The content might be as well that we're changing is what the expectations are that we actually want them to learn. So it might be the actual understanding of what we're teaching. So for example, I'm doing a poetry unit at the moment. For some students, I'm giving them quite sophisticated poems to actually be able to analyse and to understand, whereas for others they're quite simple. Still doing the same concept, still doing the same unit of poetry, but the content within that unit is different for the students. That's the adjustment we're talking about. Another adjustment might be that they only complete a section of an assessment. Often when assessments are written, they are written from the must do right to the hopefully get done, or they're done so that they build upon each other. So it might be for some students that they only have to do one section of that assessment. So it might be that they have to do the first section and the second section, and then with a great amount of help, they might do some of the others, or they just don't do it at all. This could be for students who struggle with time and being able to complete things within a timely manner, not because of disorganisation, not because of any other reason, but they take a long time to process things. So we really need to be aware of how much work we want to have. What are, as the next one says, what are the must completes? All right. So we need to make sure that our assessments are, this is what must be done, and these are the things that are extra or would be great to have done. And that's how we are adjusting the curriculum for these students. The other way to adjust is to give them extra time. And I know I've got a lot of assessments after this, but this can be within the classroom too. So it might be that, say, for example, within a classroom, you might say, all right, I want everyone to write 6 sentences about X. Someone else only needs to write 3. Or I want you to write 2 paragraphs about this. Somebody else only needs to do 1. Or as I said, you have with the poetry, I want everyone else to do these 3 poems and this group to only do 1. So the students are still doing their peer-like work. It's just that it's being adjusted for the level of understanding. So extra time is really important to complete the assessment. Or you might scaffold it as well. And scaffold work is really interesting. So it might be things like, you're going to give starter sentences. You might give the ends of sentences. You might give keywords. You might do information. So the student might highlight some information in a paragraph and then rewrite it. All those types of things are scaffolded, and we need to be really aware of how we use it. And on the next slide, I'll go into some more of those. All right, so when we're talking about assessments, can we break it down into sections for students so that there is a definitive what they need to do in a set time? So this is the first bit you have to do. Once you've done that bit, here's the next section. And this is good for all students so that they can actually see how they have to build on the assessment as they go through. And it can be the same thing in classrooms. As I said, it's not necessarily just about assessments. It can be, all right, first thing you're going to do is this. The second thing you're going to do is then this. And therefore we keep building on the work that has to be done, and it doesn't become overwhelming and the student think they have to have everything done all at once. The other thing to be really aware of too, that for some students, they need to have a modified rubric for their actual assessment when you are assessing them, especially in secondary school. It's no use doing these adjustments and then giving them the assessment, the rubric that everybody else has to do. So a modified rubric is really important, and often it's just the goals or the outcomes that you want that are a little bit different to their peers that they can be assessed on, so that they can feel good about themselves as well, because for their level of understanding, they've reached what you want them to do, and that they can get a really good mark as well. So modified rubrics are also really important. So these are the types of adjustments we can do within this area. So think about the language. Can you change the language that is actually being used on the assessment? Can you make it easier? Can you give synonyms for some of the words? So think about, especially in, say, maths, when we're talking about addition, think of all the different ways that we can say addition and subtraction. Yes, students should know those, but we need to make sure that they've got those synonyms with them so they can understand exactly what we're asking of them. Can there be less information on a page? When you think about a page of writing, it looks very daunting for a student to be able to read that. So can we break it down? As I said before, have gaps in the information. Can we just have less information on the page? So, and if we're using Google Docs or something like that, we don't have to worry about wasting paper. We can just have the main information on one page, then we move to the next one. So the student can actually focus on reading one thing at a time. As I said before, starter sentences. Can you give the child the start of the sentence and then they add in the next section? So the start of the sentence is usually what the sentence is going to be about, and they're applying their knowledge to that sentence. So you can still see if they're understanding. Modelled answers. Again, you model the answer, then they can write their own answer. Can they use part of your answer to answer the next question? Often with my students, I say there are words there that you can use. Here it is. Here's my paragraph. Look at the starts of all these sentences for my paragraph. What can you put in here? Here's an answer to look at. You write, I write. So I write something, then you write something. So again, it's that modelling. Cloze exercises are also really good. But think about what you're removing from the cloze exercise. It can't just be random words. So think about whether you're going to take out all the keywords that are about to give the information, so you know the child understands the information. If you just do random words, it doesn't make sense. So with cloze, you might remove all the adjectives or all the adverbs, or you might, as I said, remove all the keywords. Another one is matching sentences. So here is the start of the sentence, here is the end of the sentence. Can the student put the two together? They're still showing you that they understand the information because the sentences have to make sense. Or are they just randomly putting them together so they don't make sense? Are they reading the information properly? You can cut and paste to create a paragraph. So I often use this with some of our students as well. Here's my paragraph. I've mixed up the sentences. Now put them all back in the right order. Can they actually do that to understand how it all fits together? And as I said before, only complete the easier questions. For some students, it might just be you complete these. And you can do the reverse for those students who are quite articulate and quite good at doing things. They can start from the bottom and work their way up, because often how we write things is that we have our easier questions at the top, our harder questions down the bottom. So our kids who can work through the easy questions really fast, get them to start down the bottom, get the students who find the harder questions difficult, get them to start at the top. And all we're doing is mixing up, so everyone's got different ways of doing it.